Hello, everybody, and welcome, Pollyanna. Pollyanna,
Hi.
hello, my friend, is all about living a fulfilled, joyful life. She's an intuitive life coach, mother of 4 boys, award-winning author, singer, passionate earth lover, women's empowerment facilitator, tree sister, and definitely have this in common, loud laugher. All of her work is focused around helping women to make strong connections to their empowered wholeness so that they can live deeply satisfying lives and create their deepest longings. Yay. Pollyanna has almost died twice, and as a result, she is 100% committed to living a fully expressed life that's brimming with moments of joy. She knows what it is to half-ass life and has created the toolkit necessary to live empowered, grounded, and joyful. Woohoo!
Yay.
Yay! Yay! And I will be writing a similar thing to that very soon. Not it's not up there at the moment, but I'm Ilka. I'm a mother of 3 and I have a company at the moment. It's called Growing Inner Wealth. I help people to look at their money beliefs and all the things that hold us back when it comes to money and resistances that we have. And that would probably be a good lead into today's topic, because sometimes it is kind of tied up in all of that. We're talking about leisure.
Yay. Leisure, which somehow always makes me think about, those really shiny turquoise tracksuits that people used to wear with the piping up the side of the legs. And back in the days when there was leisure, when people did leisure.
They did, yes, that's probably the word. And remember when we first decided we'd do a talk on leisure, we thought we might dress up in Victorian outfits, because that's what it takes me back to, where they used to stroll along the river and do art and chat about romance.
Yeah, with their parasol.
With their parasols. But we thought that might take a while to actually set up, so we're just doing it on Zoom. We're the modern day leisure people.
Yeah. So I think what prompted this conversation was that I was reading this book by Peter Carey called Parrot and Olivier in America, and it's actually about it's a novel. It's about a 18th century French nobleman who goes to America to write about their prisons, and he's from the French aristocracy, and he says in the book that the aristocracy never did any striving in their lives, and they had all this leisure because they knew that they were the creme de la creme, and there was nowhere for them to get to, and they couldn't fall from where they were because they were noble by birth, and so they didn't strive, they just enjoyed their time. And he also said that the peasant classes also didn't strive because they had no prospect of bettering themselves, so they weren't striving either because they couldn't become noble even if they wanted to, because they were who they were by nature of their birth. And what he observed in America was that because these classes didn't exist, every man believed that he could become whatever he wanted to be, and therefore all they were doing was like just striving like crazy to become more and better and more and better. And what I noticed in that is that somehow that whole thing has become such an ingrained part of our culture, the striving for more and better, that and then you kind of hook that up with corporations as well, and you've got this kind of more and more striving tied to capitalism as well. And what's vanished in all of that is the whole concept of leisure, and what's replaced it is this idea that busy is noble.
Yes, definitely. And it's the Protestant work ethic is what I grew up with. So I was very, very conditioned to hard work is how you made it in life. And almost hard physical work really was the way to go.
Yeah.
that was what you would have a worthwhile life from doing hard physical work. You'd be able to support yourself. So yeah, I
wouldn't it give you access to heaven as well?
Oh, probably. I don't think that was probably my parents' belief, but it certainly had been passed down to them, that belief, though, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, on an unconscious level even.
Yeah. In some way, there is this idea that your worth is tied to how busy you are and how hard you work.
Yeah.
And that if you, it's become so much a part of our culture that busyness is now, everybody says they're busy. You can't actually ring a person now. I don't know if you've noticed. You used to be able to ring people up or drop over at their house. Now that's not the done thing. You have to actually text someone to find out if you can call them later. And then and then you might be able to ring them later and talk to them about whether you could possibly meet them somewhere. So there's all these boundaries that have come up because of this busyness, that we don't want to interrupt anyone because everyone's so busy, and we lose connection in that. There are a lot of barriers in the way. Like I find it a barrier that I have to text people to ask them if it's okay to ring them. Rather than what we used to do, which was just pick up the phone. But now half the time people won't answer because they're too busy.
Yes. Yeah. And you can be stuck between a rock and a hard place because you want it to be that way, but you also know that you have to have quite strong boundaries to have pleasure in your life and to have times where you can rest and have downtime and relax and that. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I know.
It's really interesting. And I have a friend who makes it her business to enjoy her leisure, and people give her a really hard time. So, because they think that she should be doing something. She should be doing something that enjoying her aliveness and, enjoying the air around her and the birds that are singing and all of that is not a valid use of her life, that she should be doing something and striving to be more and better than she is.
Yeah. I know for me, I've actually been doing a little experiment, and I take Mondays to have basically do what I want days. And the first day I did that, I was just busy anyway, and my mind was just going, oh no, well you should do that. Like I was almost like listening to my mind, just say, well no, it's okay, you could do that part of your work. That's you enjoy that bit, that's fine, you could do that. And so I was in this constant kind of battle with my mind, or not even a battle, it was more like a sneaky, come on, we can just do this part, because I think there's a certain part perhaps if you're listening to your mind that doesn't even know, the mind's not going to tell you how to relax, because that's probably the body that has to relax anyway. So the second time I tried this on a Monday, I got sick, and I was really, so I'm quite aware of how sickness, because I obviously with my clients and things like that, sickness. And the book, The Big Leap, where he discusses how sickness can be like a sabotaging pattern, I suppose, or it's the only way you get to rest.
Yeah.
And of course, in my family, that where hard work was so revered, being sick was pretty well the only time you could rest, and we did have a lot of sickness. So I saw that pattern too growing up, and I thought that was really weird. Like the only time you can rest is if you get sick. So of course, there's a lot of sickness. And then I, of course, manifested this on my second day, but I used some of my tools that I have, tapping and things like that, and pretty well shifted it very quickly, because I think there was a real awareness of what it was. And then the third Monday I did this, I actually got a urinary tract infection, which is which is something from my past that I've really struggled with in previous, and I was able to shift that as well, because I think it was just this experiment of, okay, let's see what all these resistances, what's left there for me to actually be able to, and I'm still, these Mondays, I'm I'm using my tools, and as in, you know, using my tapping and things like that, to basically just let my body relax if it wants to relax. But there is resistance to doing that. And things will come up, and the kids will need to be somewhere, and but it's just staying in this peaceful state. My mind is really busy with that. You know, you can't be doing that.
No, well, I think it's a really
getting better though,
because it doesn't just come from, you know, our family backgrounds. It also comes from the whole economic ideal that you have to, you know, everything has to continually grow. It can't go through cycles of, you know, ebb and flow. It's got to just keep growing, and that isn't the way that nature is. Nature has, you know, peaks and troughs and things that, you know, flow in a particular way. And so the economy is there driving us all to endless growth, and the and social media, I think, also contributes massively to the inability to take leisure time, because it's so stimulating. So time spent on a computer where your mind is like looking here and reading this and it's responding to that and dealing with this and dealing with that. It's stimulating in a way that is kind of pleasurable. And so when you find that you have leisure time, or, you know, and I find this myself, you know, if I go, okay, I'm just gonna chill for a couple of hours, and maybe I'll read a book or go lie on the earth or something. Within 5 minutes, I'm like, you know, I want to like respond to something, or I want to read something, or perhaps I'll just get on Google and look something up and read about this and read about that. And it's the addiction to this, the mental stimulation, and to get past that into that spaciousness where time kind of stands still, and you have access to your own deeper wisdom, and access to inspiration, and access to creative ideas. It takes quite a lot of self-discipline to actually resist the urge to go and respond to something or be stimulated or all of that. And I think that we're losing the art of relaxation and leisure because of all of those things combined.
Yeah. And I mean, relaxation and leisure, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, it feels good to relax.
But it's necessary, because if you're just in the striving all the time, the place that you wind up at is burnout. And, and that really
been there many times.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe people know what burnout is, maybe they don't, but I mean, I'm very familiar with it. It's this, you know, it's like you just hit this wall where you actually can't function anymore, and you can't think straight, and you don't want to do your work, and you don't want to participate in anything, and you just can't keep going because you've just, you know, run the energy right down to nothing. So it's actually essential that we relax. And the other thing that we're missing in constantly striving is we're actually missing our aliveness. So, you know, what you spend your time doing is your life. That's what your life is. So if your whole time is spent living on social media, then that's your living, and your poor being is just kind of a sideline thing. And it's this amazing instrument that is you know, made up of these incredible senses and all these living systems and this conscious aliveness and awareness that's there. And it, you know, like we're kind of missing all of that by being in the striving all the time and not actually, you know, I think it's quite a courageous move these days to reject busyness, to not as value.
Yeah. It's massively courageous, and I take my hat off to your friend for doing that, because there is such a connection with busyness, and we kind of connect with other people through that. I've certainly stopped using that word, but when you were talking then, Pollyanna, it made me think of the conversation we had last week, where you were saying that once you kind of got a structure underneath your finances, right, and I feel like that's what I'm doing. I need to have a structure in my timetable that actually says, well, these parts of my life are carved out for relaxation. And even though there's a massive resistance to doing that, it's like I need to make sure I have, because really the burnout will lead you to, like in my experience, it led you to spending a week in bed.
Yeah.
So that's basically what you're leading yourself towards anyway. So why not, maybe if you put that into little increments along the way and actually allowed yourself to relax and put it into your schedule. And I had massive resistance to doing that. But if you do that and really let go of that resistance, then you can build a structure, just like with the finances underneath that then building your work life and that around the fact that you can relax. To me, that was kind of my thinking process with it all.
Yeah, that's cool.
I need to do that first. I need to build those things in first. Otherwise, the other stuff I'll always get towards burnout because it's not built in.
Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant. Yeah. And that's a radical act on its own, I think.
It is. There's so much resistance. Yeah. I'm still working on it.
Well, because there's all these people that are held up to us as being, these, especially in entrepreneurial circles, I think there's a lot of people that are held up as being, these hardworking, terribly busy, they hardly have time to speak to you because they've got back-to-back meetings over the last 6 days, and they're flying here and they're going there and they're doing this, and it's as though there's value put on that craziness, and that is a sign that a person is successful and that they're worth something and that they're busy and actually, for you to sit down and go, no, wait a minute, I'm actually going to carve out periods of time to be not busy and stimulated it's a really radical act.
Yeah.
And I think I should be doing that too.
Well, I mean, even doing this interview for me is lots of fun. And that's probably, again, I think something people struggle with around. So even your work, like for me, I know this is what I struggle with. Work has to kind of be hard. So even to start doing work that's fun for you and that you love, there's a kind of a lot of resistance to that.
Yeah, because it should be
almost the first step. It's like to overcome the fact that you can do something you love to do.
Yeah, which I guess is where ease and grace come in. That if we live in this world that is totally out of whack in terms of being heavily weighted towards the masculine, within a person, all that doing is very much in the masculine. And if we really hang out in a place of balance inside us, then there would be equal weight given to the feminine, which would be all about being in that place of receptivity and awareness, and not in pushing and not in striving, and in receiving our own deeper wisdom. And I don't know about you, but if I let myself, there's two things that I can do when I get in my car. I can put on my very self-improving audiobook that's in the radio, and I can work my brain while I'm driving,
Yes.
And learn something
new. That's the better option, Pollyanna. Yes. That's what you should be doing.
It's definitely what I should be doing. Or
you should.
Or I can get into my car and turn the radio off and drive and let my mind meander. And when I do that, often I will find myself, especially if I have to drive for at least half an hour, something will bubble up. And it could be, the answer to something I've been wrestling with for ages. Or sometimes, I'll know that I've got to do a speaking gig and I haven't thought of anything to say. And it'll just start arriving without, unbidden. Here it just arrives. And that's what we're depriving ourselves of by being constantly busy and by being constantly stimulated, is we're actually depriving ourselves of that meander time, of the ability to drop it to no space and no time and have those things arise within, which us, I couldn't imagine living without those things. But it's so easy to get into a place of just doing and forgetting they even exist.
Yeah, Yeah. And we were talking, I think, before we started recording about how I heard either Deepak or one of the Indian mystics talking about how basically peace is the only place that creation comes from. You know, peace and any vibration above that kind of is where we are accessing inspiration. So if we're not accessing inspiration, we're repeating conditioned programming.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing, and we're on like the rat wheel. I think I kind of was like, no, I really want to get off that rat wheel.
And you
it can be difficult, but
you can feel it, can't you? Like, when you're doing it, because you're just going at it, and going at the working and going at the living and going, doing the relationship and doing the parenting and and you're not really with any of it. You're just kind of, getting it done. And
exactly.
It makes me think of one of the things in the Big Leap.
Yes.
Which I really love, which actually I love more than any of the rest of the book. So I kind of have put aside most of the book, except this one piece where he says that you make time. So
yes.
When I read it, it sort of floored me, and I thought, how is this possible? I don't believe it. But since I read that, and it's a very calming concept. It if you stand in that, and like if you're going somewhere and you know that you needed to leave 5 minutes ago, and you get in your car and you've got this like, I've got to get there and I'm going to be late and all of that. But if you go, hang on a minute, I make time. I'm actually creating time. Mm-hmm. There's something very relaxing about that, and you get to be present, because the thing is, you can't, if you're already late, you can't do anything about it. You're already late, right? What can you do? You But what I've noticed is that the more I'm in that space of, okay, well, I'm leaving too late, but I create time, and I'm just going to trust that actually it's going to be fine. I have actually been getting to places on time in a way that doesn't make any sense. And this, I'm sure that busyness is driven by the idea that there isn't any time. It's driven by the idea that there's not enough. Yeah. Not enough time. There isn't enough money. There isn't enough, there isn't enough time. People are crazy about time. They want time one-on-one with their partner, and time with each child, and time to do the work, and then family time, and this time and that time. And there's pretty soon there's no time, and you are doing the rat wheel thing. But in that spaciousness of I'm making, time is generated by me from this source right here. The time is coming. It's such a peaceful thought, and it does allow you to be really, really present with your experience, which of course is where the inspiration and the creativity all come from.
Yeah, definitely. And what kind of things do you do to allow that to be more a part of your life? What helps you with that?
With being really present?
Yeah.
I go outside and I put my feet on the ground, and I feel my feet on the ground, and I bring myself present by listening to the sounds around me. And I've got lots of birds here, and so that's really beautiful. And I can, in one moment go, okay, what sounds are there? And realize that there's been some birds singing that I haven't really been noticing. And notice it. I think using the senses is a really amazing way to come present,
yes,
which parts of my body are touching the seat where I'm sitting, and am I hungry, and what's my sense of what season it is right now, and how does the air temperature feel on my skin, and can I taste anything in my mouth? And like all of those things bring you right into the present moment and take you off the rat wheel.
Yes.
I also think that your idea of action, which is kind of funny in terms of talking about time, to schedule in leisure.
Yes.
It feels like a really clunky idea.
Yes.
It's so counterintuitive, because surely leisure is what we're all seeking by all this crazy rat wheel, aren't we? Like trying to get to this point where at some time down the track we'll have accumulated so much and achieved so much, and then we can relax. But that's actually madness.
Yeah.
So
Because
you could die. I
Yeah.
could get off this call and walk outside, and a gum tree branch could drop on my head, and that would be it. I'll be gone.
That's it.
As someone who's almost died twice, very suddenly, I know that this is it's a very real possibility. And so maybe we do need to actually schedule in the leisure time so that we can get used to it again, of what it actually is, and how it feels in the body to just go, God, I'm just going to read that book this afternoon, that non-self-improving book that I'm just reading because it's enjoyable and because I'm relaxed, and how beautiful is this spring day, and the birds are singing, and I'm reading my book, and it's all really lovely, and I'm allowed this time because I am the generator of it.
Yeah. And and my whole reason for scheduling was was to create the time, but more was my whole point of it was more to notice the resistance.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if I actually did the action, that's normally what will bring up all your conditioned responses. And until you've let those go, you won't actually be able to even experience it that well in the spaces in between.
So because have you got to the bit where you're enjoying your leisure?
Much better. It's much better. But I have massive conditioning around this. My parents, or particularly my father, telling me hard work is success, and lots and lots of stories about working. People who take holidays are going to end up in the gutter. All sorts of stuff that he, constantly. So I remember I used to get sick nearly every holiday we went on. I would end up sick. Because almost like that was okay, and a massive amount of guilt around taking any holidays. So just know I have to work on that. And yes, definitely getting much better, and that does then filtrate out into all the other areas of your life, because you can be present. The more you kind of really direct attention towards letting go of that conditioning, the more you can direct it. You can have it anywhere then.
And so what is it? What are the things that you love to do then when you have leisure time?
I love to just lay on the lawn. I think it's like going back to when you're a child. When you're a child, there's no judgment of what you're doing with your time.
Yeah.
So you could spend the whole day just being, I don't know, I think I used to be we used to play games, or I was fairies and things like that. But, you could spend time rolling around on the grass and then doing, whizzing around and round in circles, and time just didn't have any meaning when you're a child. You're always playing.
That's true. It makes me think of, I spent hours as a little girl lying on my tummy under the peach tree because we had snapdragon flowers, and you can pinch them at the back and they talk. So I used to spend hours just lying there making the snapdragons talk.
Yes.
And even thinking about that, just to step into that memory imaginatively, it's like, and I can feel the hot concrete, the pavers the warmth of the pavers under my belly, the way the snapdragons look, and the light shining through the peach tree, and it feels like being very, very alive. If I think about just sitting at my computer all day and dealing with things and dealing with emails and writing stuff on social media and getting on with my opt-in and my freebie and my list building and all of that, I don't feel alive in that. I feel like I'm living by somebody else's framework.
And I was thinking about one of my best memories is when we used to go to the local swimming pool, and hours and hours on end we would spend diving in the water and playing, and then getting out and lying on, when you said lying on the warm concrete with our towels. And just to remember some of those things, it brings back a sense of aliveness. I was thinking to myself, yeah, it's like even to remember what it felt like to be that alive is an amazing thing to do. But then just to give yourself permission to basically be like that child, I think is it's so freeing. And then all this inspiration does come to you because, of course, you're in a place of almost pure inspiration. Children just make up games on the spot, you know. They're totally free to kind of imagine. And
if they don't have devices, because
yes,
what we're talking about here is actually really true of children. So if they have access to devices, you know, in that same moment where I would go out, lie outside, and within 5 minutes being, you know, I'm twitching to want to get on Google or something. If a child has a device handy, they don't get into games and stuff. They'll get on the device and out come the thumbs and that's it. And the games don't come. And they have the same wrestle with it that we do, where, you know, if you deprive them of that kind of stimulation, they go through this horrible, uncomfortable period of like, and then suddenly they're out on the trampoline, or they're making up games, or they're building teepees, or whatever it is that they're doing. But, you know, it's obviously hardwired in us that, you know, we want to be in that stimulation. It seems crazy. It seems crazy to me that this is what human beings are like. That, you know, if we can get stimulated, that's it. We're going for that, and we're going to throw away any sense of aliveness and wonder and beauty in favor of getting really overstimulated. And, you know, like, that just seems completely nuts. But if that's how we are, and children are the same.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I wonder whether a lot of that's because there's an engagement there where you're getting feedback, as opposed to if you're on your own. Like, when I'm thinking about myself as a child, like you, I would spend a lot of time on my own as well. So the engagement is kind of with nature and with something that's much bigger than yourself, kind of thing, as opposed to getting this mind feedback all the time. And it's almost like acknowledgement, acceptance. It's almost like the device loves you.
Yeah.
I think that's what the addiction to the stimulation is. And so and this is where it comes back to having leisure and relaxation is self-love. Like, it's learning to love yourself. It's learning to feel into yourself instead of having something else to give you that, I suppose.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, what I was saying before about driving in the car. Up until I was about 32, I could never drive in a car without the radio on, because I could not bear to be with myself. Like, I couldn't
being with yourself. Yes.
To just be in a car in silence with myself was just the most horrible thing. And you know, now I love to be with myself.
Yeah.
You know, I live in a family of 6 people. Any time where I get to be with myself is like just cause for huge celebration.
Yes.
And so, you know, the desire to put the radio on is that same thing, or to put, you know, to be stimulating myself with learning or growth or whatever. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with learning.
No,
growth,
nothing
but
wrong with
it's the loss of balance that becomes a problem then.
Yeah, and I was actually, because I think about some weird stuff, but I was thinking, like, say you know you're going to die. You know, you're lying on your deathbed. Well, you're kind of going to have to be with yourself.
Yeah.
So
but we already know we're going to die. Like, we already know we're going to die. There's no doubt there. It is going to happen. It's just
going
a question
to happen. So it's kind of like, if you can imagine that moment, and how, if you can learn to love yourself, then in that moment you're going to be loving yourself through that death, through those moments of, I know that might sound like a really weird thing to think about, but I think it does help, that you're going to be by yourself when you die.
Yeah.
And
you can either embrace and be present with that experience, or fight it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, if you can kind of say, well, wow, that's going to happen one day, I might as well start practicing how I would like. And it's like, I think then it gets into that. Will you be able to be so present with yourself that you are in love with how your life has been and how you spent your life and all of those things, that you're so peaceful at that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to contemplate.
Well, and to then bring it into now, like,
Yeah.
just be in, like, if we were just doing that, if we did that right now, then I can go, wow, I'm just sitting here on this very comfortable couch, surrounded by the most, I'll show you, I don't know if you might be able to see, I'm surrounded by the most beautiful surroundings.
Yeah.
And everything is actually really good right now. You know, the sun is shining.
Was that what it was a bit like when you had these near-death experiences?
The first one, I was in a hospital, and I had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, and I was bleeding internally, and it was, how to describe it? It was, I kind of felt like I was, up until that point, I'd been clinging on to being alive. I was like, I want to see my kids, I want to see my children, and I want to be with my partner, and I don't want to be dying right now, blah. And I was lying in the hospital bed, and I started feeling like I was like drifting away, like drawing away. And all those attachments were just leaving like little balloons, like they're just drifting off up into the sky. And I didn't have that sense of attachment to, wanting to see my kids or anything. It all kind of went away. And I felt like I was kind of falling back into the most loving embrace that you could possibly melt into. And then my partner went, Pollyanna! And suddenly the room was full of people, and they were rushing me into surgery and all of that. So that was that experience. But the second one, I guess I had a similar kind of thing happening. There was a point at which, because I had a bleed in the brain when I was in Peru, and there was a point at which I was kind of not worried about anything. I was just there in my experience of going unconscious and waking back up and thinking, this is all really weird. and just, I was just in that experience, the way that you are when things go catastrophically wrong or something terrible happens, you're just in the experience. And after everybody says, oh God, I wouldn't want that to happen to me, or, how awful. But the thing is, when you're in it, you're just there. You're not, this is a really awful experience right now. It's just, so.
And that is the present moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you might as well basically be there.
Yeah. And later on your mind goes, oh my God, that was a really awful thing, because generally you have to deal with some kind of consequence. So with the bleed on the brain, I had this consequence of like quite a lot of pain in my head, and I had struggled with language for some time and had extreme tiredness and all that. So the whole experience bagged up together added up to, my mind going, I don't want to do that again. And the same with the ectopic surgery. There was a surgery after that, and it was quite shocking. And then there was the fact that I'd lost a pregnancy, and there's a whole kind of flow on of stuff that happens afterwards, which your mind then goes, well, that was a bad thing that happened because of these consequences. Yeah. But actually, if you're really with that experience, it doesn't feel like a bad experience in the moment. It just is.
Which is so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So now I'm really so chilled out that I don't have a lot to say.
We should be doing this together on your couch, and then we could just kind of sit there and go,
Yeah. But I think, that presence is really, it's in the body. It's not in the mind. And if you can calm the body, then the mind follows. Like I always have struggled with meditation because my mind won't be calm. But if I can get my body calm, then my mind just kind of, So if I can get my belly soft and my breathing gentle, then everything just, just calms down. And then I can imagine us strolling by the river in our long white dresses with our parrots. Yeah.
Yes, well, I hope everyone else that's listening can imagine that too, or can think of something that really helps them to move into their body, a childhood memory, or something that really is going to perhaps encourage you to think about relaxing more in your life.
Yeah, and scheduling leisure time.
Yeah, scheduling, at least until the conditioning is gone. And then I think it will feel quite normal.
Yeah.
To actually have that as part of your life. You might not call it scheduled in.
Well, imagine if that was actually how we worked. If that's being in that space of real presence and wonder and this, that warm concrete on the belly feeling. People get worried, I think, that if they take leisure time, they're just going to not do anything. But it isn't true, because if you really hang out in that warm belly feeling on the concrete and you're just really present and all that, pretty soon an idea arises, something bubbles up that you want to act on, and then boom, you're up there acting on it. And then at a certain point that the energy of that begins to wane and you can go back into the leisure space again, and then before you know it, up comes another creative prospect and off you go again. So there's no risk that you're going to become a zombie or anything.
Or fall back into this belief system that it all comes from hard work, because it's actually the truth of it is probably very different.
Yeah.
So very fascinating. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
It's been a fun conversation.
And
we shall do it again. We'll sign out for now.